You want people to do things for you. The art of making people do what you want them to do is called persuasion. You may know this, but what you might not know is that you are persuading the wrong way. Yes, my friend, your persuasions are misfiring. Most people think persuasion works at the moment you make the ask, the pitch, the argument, the perfectly chosen words. That's where they focus their effort, and that's exactly where they go wrong. It's like planting a seed and being surprised when nothing grows. Imagine this. You carefully choose a seed. You water it. You even check the sunlight. But you never look at the soil. The ground is dry, compacted, neglected. When the seed fails to sprout, you blame the seed, or the timing, or your luck. You try again with a different seed. Same result. Persuasion fails the same way. People try to plant ideas, requests, or invitations into a mind that isn't ready to receive them. A mind that's distracted, defensive, uncertain, or misaligned. When the answer is no, they push harder or try a different argument, never realizing the problem wasn't the message, it was the mental ground it landed on. Robert Cialdini discovered that the most powerful influence doesn't happen during the ask at all. It happens before it. When the situation, attention, and expectations are subtly shaped in advance, the same message suddenly works. The soil has been prepared. The seed now has a real chance to grow. This process is called pre-suasion, arranging the moment before persuasion so people are already inclined in the direction you want them to go. Cialdini uncovered 6 core pre-suasion principles that work before any request is made. They condition the mind so that when the idea finally lands, it takes root naturally, without resistance. If you're here to genuinely sharpen your influence, subscribe before we begin. This isn't casual browsing. It's for people who intend to upgrade how they show up and are willing to act on. Persuasion Tactic 1. Reciprocity. To understand this, consider a scenario. You've had a long, exhausting day. You sit down, thinking about dinner, chores, or work still piling up. Suddenly, someone brings you a cup of tea or a snack you really love without you asking. They don't make a show of it. They just hand it to you with a small smile and walk away. How do you feel? Maybe there's a warmth in your chest, a sense that someone noticed you, cared for you, or lightened your load. You feel seen. You feel a small pull toward that person. Maybe a desire to return the favor, help them, or at least be more receptive when they ask something of you. That's the invisible thread of reciprocity at work. Why did it hit you this way? Notice a few key things in that small act. It is a doable exchange that you can reciprocate. It met your need, and hence it landed on you as thoughtful. It didn't come with any strings, so you didn't feel pressured to reciprocate, but there was a silent nudge your mind gave you to return the favor. Next time, when you do something small for someone, you'll notice a natural pull to give back. That's how reciprocity builds quietly, organically, through felt experience, not rules. Here's a simple experiment. Try doing one small thing for one person, something that really adds value for them. It should be something small and thoughtful. Do only one per person. Do the same to different people in different settings. Watch how people seem much more willing and ready to do things for you or listen to your requests. Persuasion Tactic 2. Commitment and consistency. Once people commit to an identity, they tend to remain consistent with that commitment. Let us look at an example to see this in action. You want a friend to join you for a morning walk, but you don't ask yet. In a relaxed conversation, you say, "You've always been the kind of person who takes their health seriously, even when life gets busy." They agree. You talk a bit more about how they value taking care of their body. In that moment, they voluntarily committed to something about who they are by agreeing with you. A week later, you casually say, "I'm going for a morning walk, wondering if you'd like to join." They are much more likely to say yes, not because of pressure, but because saying yes preserves the self-image they already expressed. Saying no would quietly contradict what they themselves claimed earlier. The alignment needs to still be fresh. Wait too long, and the effect weakens. This works even better when the commitment is public or requires effort. If they expressed this view in front of others or defended it in a conversation, backing away becomes harder. Keep the invitation light and choice-based, aligned with their values. For instance, start with small, easy walks before suggesting anything bigger. People don't like to feel persuaded, but they strongly prefer to stay consistent with who they believe they are. Persuasion Tactic 3. Social proof. When people feel uncertain, they instinctively look at what others are doing. What are other people like me doing in such a situation? Imagine there's a workshop you want to attend, and you'd like your friend to come along, but this friend isn't someone who naturally jumps at these opportunities the way you do. So instead of inviting them directly, you first ground the situation socially. You quietly check who has already attended, what kind of people they were, and how the experience landed for them. Then, in conversation, you say something like, "Bruce and Clark went for this workshop. They were unsure at first, and even though they might leave early, but they ended up staying till the end. Now they're actually planning to attend it again. That made me curious. What do you think?" At this point, their resistance has already softened. Social proof works because it lowers the perceived cost of being wrong. If the workshop turns out mediocre, the decision won't feel foolish because others made the same choice and survived it. There's also an identity alignment happening beneath the surface. If your friend chooses not to attend, they now have to internally justify why they are opting out of something people they relate to chose to do. That internal reasoning sounds like, "They attended it, I didn't, so maybe I'm not like them." But that creates psychological friction because people rarely want to exclude themselves from a group they feel similar to. Instead, they tend to align their choices with people they identify with. Once that mental alignment forms, saying no starts to feel uncomfortable. And timing seals it. You place the proof before the invitation, so by the time the ask arrives, the behavior already feels normal. The agreement doesn't feel like persuasion, it feels like the obvious next step. Persuasion Tactic 4. Liking. People are far more open to influence when it comes from someone they like, trust, or feel aligned with. Say that you want a colleague to support an idea you're proposing, but they're usually cautious and non-committal. Instead of pushing the idea head-on, you first create a sense of personal resonance. You bring up a shared frustration, a similar past experience, or a common value you both hold. You might say,
You know how we both hate projects that look good on paper but collapse in execution? That's why this approach caught my attention. It actually solves the same issues you flagged last quarter. In that moment, the idea is no longer separate from you. It's woven into a shared identity. This works because liking reduces psychological distance. When people feel similar to you, their brain treats your suggestions as safer, less risky, and less adversarial. Compliments also play a role, but not the obvious kind. Subtle validation of someone's judgment or values reinforces their self-image, and agreeing with you becomes a way of staying consistent with that image. Cooperation deepens this effect. Once you frame the situation as we instead of you versus me, resistance drops. Familiarity adds the final layer. The more natural and human the interaction feels, the less the request feels like persuasion. The yes doesn't come from pressure, it comes from rapport doing the work quietly in the background.
Persuasion Tactic 5. Authority. People are more likely to say yes when the request appears to come from someone who knows what they're doing or has earned the right to be listened to. Imagine you want someone to follow a recommendation you're making, but they're unsure whether it's the right move. Instead of asserting your opinion directly, you anchor it in authority. You reference relevant experience, credentials, or informed judgment, not loudly, but matter-of-factly. You might say, "When I worked on a similar situation last year, this was the approach the senior consultant insisted on. At the time, I questioned it, but it ended up preventing the exact issues we're worried about now." Suddenly, the idea carries weight beyond your personal preference. Authority works because it reduces the cognitive burden of decision-making. When people feel uncertain, they look for reliable shortcuts, and expertise functions as one of the strongest. Signals of knowledge or status reassure them that the risk has already been evaluated by someone more informed. There's also a transfer of responsibility effect. If the outcome isn't perfect, the psychological cost feels lower because the decision was guided by authority. Timing matters here too. When credibility is established before the request, resistance weakens before it even forms. The agreement doesn't feel like submission. It feels like a rational choice made in the presence of trusted judgment. Persuasion Tactic 6. Scarcity. People assign more value to things that appear limited, fleeting, or about to disappear. Imagine you want someone to commit to an opportunity, but they're hesitating because it feels optional and safe to delay. Instead of pushing harder, you frame the window. You might say, "This group is only taking 2 more people, and after this week they're closing it for the rest of the year. I wasn't sure at first either, but knowing this was the last opening made me look at it differently." The tone isn't pressure, it's informational. But the effect is immediate. The opportunity no longer lives in the abstract future. It now has edges. Scarcity works because loss weighs more heavily on the human mind than gain. As Cialdini explains, when availability is restricted, freedom feels threatened, and the desire to reclaim that freedom intensifies. The value doesn't come only from what the thing is, but from what it might soon not be. Scarcity also sharpens focus. When options feel infinite, people delay. When an option is framed as rare or time-bound, attention narrows and motivation spikes. Crucially, you introduce scarcity before the decision point, not afterward. By the time the choice is presented, the mind is already solving for avoidance of regret.
The yes doesn't feel rushed. It feels necessary.
Now that you've seen all 6 tactics of persuasion, here's the part most people miss, and where almost everyone ruins it. These aren't tricks you use to get something. The moment you practice them with an outcome in mind, they collapse. You'll either get nothing, or worse, people will feel something is off. Not because persuasion is unethical, but because clumsy intent leaks. Beginners try to harvest before anything has grown. The real move is quieter. You apply these principles without asking for anything back. You shape environments. You reinforce identities. You make small, thoughtful gestures. You let people arrive at their own conclusions. If you want someone to care about their health, you don't push habits. You reinforce who they already believe they are. If you want influence, you don't demand attention. You become someone worth listening to. And something strange happens.